Hello, my name is Roscoe Giles. I'm here to encourage you to take a thoroughly anti-racist perspective as you redefine and rebuild your departments in these times of change. I'll start with a short story and then a few lessons from that story. After the end of last semester, my student Santiago Gomez, who was in my logic design class, approached me with a letter expressing his concern about the use of a master-slave metaphor to describe a D flip-flop composed of D latches. He described how he was engaged and appreciating the course material until his focus was disrupted by the master-slave metaphor. Indeed, the purpose of such a metaphor in a textbook is to explain a technical relationship by drawing an analogy with another human experience. The success for this communication and learning depends strongly on how the learner interprets the language, not only what the writer intended. I forwarded his letter to the publisher, Pearson, and he had a series of rapid responses from the publisher, including halting the further distribution of this textbook plus several others they had discovered that included this language, a review of some of their processes for interacting with authors and editors around these issues. And Pearson VP and her team met with Santiago and I to discuss his experience and how to get much more direct engagement of students on such issues. And finally, the publisher is reaching out to IEEE and ACM about curriculum guidelines and standards. There are more details of this story in the reference link on this slide. What lessons do I take from this? First, that systemic racism envelops our institution and can numb us a bit. In this case, for me, though I didn't use the master-slave metaphor in my actual teaching, I didn't work to destroy it on a larger scale either. But we're at a point where big changes can and should happen, both with respect to our education and racial justice within our institutions. This is hinted at by the swift reaction of the publisher that big changes are possible. We know it from the work we're doing otherwise in the context of racial justice, COVID, and the relation of the university to the rest of the country. And finally, an element from the story is the leadership of young people who bring novel approaches and energy and vision and optimism to building their future. An important resource for all of us in thinking about how we can work for racial justice is the Black in Computing open letter about what needs to be done and what goals should be for the relationship with Black students and faculty, and references to organizations leading change. Please review that letter with the spirit of what can I do as a leader to implement these changes rather than the sometimes tempting approach, these issues can't all be stated correctly. Thank you. Thank you for your attention, and really request that you please act in your own circumstances to increase racial justice in computing. Thank you very much for your attention.